Last play before the 2-minute warning. Rodgers buys time, airs it out. Mike Williams fell down, and it is picked by Tyron Johnson. Of the game, by the way, the interception by Tyron Johnson. Here's Allen. He's got it.
3, 2, 1.
First down, Buffalo.
Oh, his smug face. Oh, brutal. Absolutely brutal. There's no other way to describe it. The New York Jets lost a third consecutive game in predictable fashion with an Aaron Rodgers mistake and the defense folding as we fall to the Buffalo Bills 23-20. I am your lost, confused, dejected host, Ras Guevara, along with my executive producer, Mark Levine. Welcome to the Just the podcast, powered by RCG Digital Media. It turns out the greatest decision of the evening came from my co-host, Rich McLeod, who decided today to skip today's recording because he had a wedding in Maine. But like the loser Jets fans that we are, let's jump right into this fucking debacle. Mark, sum up the evening for us, buddy. Tell me what's going through your head right now.
I think we're just going to turn this into a Yankee podcast. Hey, they won 5-2, right? Giancarlo, big home run, a couple of wild pitches by the Indians. We're that much closer to a Subway Series, right? We're all in a great mood.
I mean, like, of all the fucking years we choose to start a sports podcast, right? We had multiple different teams to choose from. We both root for the Yankees. We could have done a Mets podcast with Rich. We could have done
a Liberty podcast.
But no, we chose to do a New York Jets podcast in probably one of the toughest seasons that I can remember, man. Like, it's just such a shitty, empty feeling. It's just brutal, absolutely brutal.
I think that's just based on expectation alone.
Yeah.
I mean, we came into this season with high hopes, and I think that's just what makes it hurt that much more.
Yeah, man. Listen, that's you hit the nail right on the head. Like, that's what makes this so painful. Last year, it was understood that Aaron Rodgers going down kind of just, we knew what we were getting in Zach Wilson. We knew that what the expectations were, just maybe potentially getting to a playoff, and all the build up from the summer was just transported into this season. And coming into the season, we sort of foolishly believe those newspaper clippings that we are a Super Bowl contender and that we are built to win now, and everything was Aaron Rodgers is finally here to carry us on his broad shoulders. And we're just falling flat on our faces. And it
in spectacular fashion.
In spectacular fashion, man. It's just fucking shitty. It's shitty. It doesn't matter who the coach is. It doesn't matter who is calling the plays. What matters is the name on the side of the helmet and wearing the green and white. And that's ultimately what matters. It's like, this team is cursed. This team is not destined to do anything for the entirety of our lifetimes. And that's not an exaggeration. Everybody just turns to shit when they put on that fucking uniform, regardless of who you are and what your accomplishments are. But enough about me. Tell me, man. Like, tell me, what was your first thought that crossed your mind when Aaron Rodgers threw that pick?
I believe my words were unfucking believable. And my wife, who was sitting right next to me watching the game, goes, "Did he catch that?" And I go, "No, he fucking slipped and it was intercepted."
I'll tell you who was not surprised. Our wonderful co-host, who, like I said, we mentioned was in Maine.
Enjoying a wedding, but not too busy to tweet about it.
Wedding, but not too busy to tweet about the misery along with us. He tweeted, We all know how this game is going to end. The defense will lapse here and give up 3 to 7 points. Mind you, this is
This was
before.
right before the
Yeah,
Tyler Bass field goal.
exactly. The Jets offense will go down the field, give you hope, and lose on some stupid back-breaking turnover. And I mean, like, you can only just laugh at the predictability of this fucking shitty ass team. It's just it's predictable. It's predictable the mistakes that are going to happen. I think at some point I put in our group chat, oh, missed tackles, pre-snap penalties, drop passes. Stop me if you heard any of this before, because it doesn't really fucking matter who the coach is. And in our emergency podcast, Rich and I, we were talking about. Um, I told him my concern is that this team, the issue with Robert Saleh sulking on the sideline was the least of our problems. Like all of the things that he brought to the table, or dare I say, did not bring to the table, were not the to the top of my list on our problems list. We cannot cover. I'm sorry, we cannot protect the quarterback. We cannot run block. We did successfully today, much better job, and there was a little tiny spark in the new offense in the offensive play caller and Downing, but ultimately at the end of the day, we are who we are. Our team is who it is, regardless of who is the head coach or who is playing calling the plays. Um, our identity has been cast in stone, and this is who we are. And this is the middling team that we root for. And I just simply have no hope. I am like foolish. I feel foolish in my expectations, week in and week out. And I think um, I'm just so demoralized and so beaten, along with anybody who is foolish enough to root for the Jets. Man,
I am right there with you. I mean, other than all those holding penalties, the running game was better.
right?
Except unless you're going to discount the fact that Braylon Allen should have had a touchdown. That was called back for a holding.
I mean, and the fucking penalties, dude. The
I
penalties.
mean, 11 penalties for 110 yards, multiple pass interference calls, multiple backbreaking holding calls on big plays. It
I
just
mean,
was the thing that we were led to believe was, and maybe it's a little foolish to think that it was actually going to happen after like 6 days.
yeah.
But the fact that Saleh gets fired, Ulbrich is the new head coach, and you're like, oh, there's going to be accountability. 11 penalties, 110 yards, undisciplined football. I know things aren't magically going to change that quickly, but some improvement would have been nice.
I mean, and it's frustrating, and it's frustrating to hear it week in and week out. I mean, it's just frustrating. Let me before we get to the game balls, and I know like we have to at least look for some silver linings in this miserable game, but let me play this clip for you from Jeff Ulbrich.
Obviously, you can't be happy about the penalties, but these games are about moments, right? Guys played hard. Stats were pretty close across the board. You talk about a drop ball in the end zone, got hit, Rat makes a play, we don't make a catch, and then on the flip side, you get a ball down the middle, capturing the moment, maybe catching it by Ruckert. Again, they make a play and knock the ball out. Just talk about how those momentum swings are big in the game.
Yeah, they're huge. We got to make those plays. And I know you referred to the penalties to begin with. Just it's not good enough. We got to collectively look at it, take a hard look at the tape. What's legit? What isn't? Because it's always there's always telling. From a discipline standpoint, though, that can't happen. It can't. It puts you behind the sticks, and it just puts us behind before we even get started. So it's wasn't good enough in that way.
Wasn't good enough. I mean, that's the story of the season. The Jets are not good enough. It doesn't matter who is in there. Like our personnel is not good enough. And regardless of what Woody Johnson thinks, this being the best roster he's assembled in years, ultimately your record says who you are.
You are what your record says you are. And
you are what your record says you are.
You can be as good as you think you are on paper, but unfortunately, Tyron Smith kind of proves this point a little too much this week, where you can be this amazing player on paper, but he was brutal today. So you can say you have all the talent in the world, and this is the most talented team you have, but that means nothing unless you put it on the field and actually perform.
All right, man. Let's do the most difficult task that we will do for this entire show, and that is look for some silver linings. Each week we award game balls to the contributors we feel deserve them. Mark, who are you awarding the coveted Mark Levine game ball to?
Mine is going to be just a little nitpicky.
Okay.
It would have been Garrett Wilson. I know he was throwing a hospital ball in the end zone that he dropped for what would have been his second touchdown of the game.
Yeah.
So just for that, maybe that's a little too nitpicky, but I'm going to go with Alan Lazard. Also a little nitpicky based on the fact that he didn't drop a ball. He had 6 catches, 114 yards for probably the most important catch, the Hail Mary at the end of the second quarter that he actually caught and came down with, surprisingly. But yeah, 7 targets, 6 catches, 114 yards, a touchdown. He was there when Aaron Rodgers needed him. He was basically the go-to on all those big plays other than Garrett, and I think he deserves it probably a little more just for the fact that he didn't drop a pass, which is sadly something to be celebrated, I guess.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you, man. You know how I feel about Lazard personally. I just cannot stand him as a player. But the chemistry with Aaron Rodgers is undeniable. The Hail Mary catch was just the highlight of the game for us and gave us hope. Like the Bills had all the momentum heading into the halftime, receiving the ball first in the second half, and if we don't get those big 7 points, the Bills are up 10 with the ball and all the momentum. Who knows how this game turns out? But yeah, no, I'm right there with you. 19 yards per reception. Obviously, that big 52-yard Hail Mary kind of plays a role into that, but just not dropping a pass is commendable for him. And yeah, that Garrett Wilson, if he just holds on, man, that's a completely different ball game. As far as me, Breece Hall in the running game look creative, look completely different than we've seen all season long. Even in the Patriots game, I felt like this game, we tried different things, and the new offensive play caller, I want to call him offensive coordinator, but that's not his title. He's still the passing game coordinator. He's just calling the offensive plays, Todd Downing. But Breece Hall, this is the player that we've been waiting on all season. He showed the burst, he showed the quick movements. He looked like he stopped thinking, and it was just kind of reacting and exploding through the halls. Ultimately, it did not matter because the outcome was the same. But he put all the tools that he has on display. He rushed for 18 carries with 113 yards. He caught 5 receptions for another 56 yards. He did fail to deliver that touchdown that we needed this evening. He had one man to beat on that long run down the sideline, and he was just unable to shake that one defender to be able to get into the end zone. And that I felt like was the theme of the evening. We did a lot of great things, but when it came down to it, when we came, that last, defender that we needed to elude, or that last block that we needed to get, or that last pass that we needed to complete, we just, fell short.
Not to mention, he also could have broken off another big one.
Yep.
Had the aforementioned Tyron Smith not completely whiffed on a block.
Oh yeah. And the offensive line was a huge issue, man. Huge issue. We just can't seem to put a complete game together at all. Like we do good on the running game, we falter in the pass protection. We do good in the pass protection, we falter in the run blocking. And it's just like we cannot. And that as a whole is what defines this entire team, right? We play well defensively. We can't put together a good offensive game. Today we had a decent offensive game. We couldn't stop a nosebleed, in the infamous words of Bart Scott. Like, it was just, we cannot rely on a complete team effort at all from this team. Man, we're so like low energy and so like beaten. Like we're like just
Yeah.
abused here, man. It's just
It's
tough.
so funny because I think the first episode that we ever recorded, and I think we did the season predictions, and I was like, oh, I think I'm going to be the voice of optimism on this podcast. And all I can think of is you're giving your game ball to Breece Hall. And all I could think of is that first drive where
When he
Bruce Hall
dropped
misses the catch on 3rd and 4, where they could have set the tone early, scored a touchdown. The pass was a little bit in front of him, but he got his hand on it, could have caught it, makes it 4th down. They had to settle for the field goal instead of going for that early touchdown to sort of set the tone. I think this podcast has made me more negative. And I don't like it because I really want it to be the voice of optimism.
Well, you're failing. You're failing miserably, and you're dragging us all with you, Mark. I hope you're happy with yourself.
I like the Jets when I fail spectacularly as well. So.
With that being said, let's just head into our first quarter topic, which is Aaron Rodgers done? Despite the voice of optimism, Mark Levine here, bringing the mood completely down with his negative thoughts. We're going to try to get this show back on track here. We like to dive into 4 different talking points coming out of the game, each corresponding to a quarter of a football game. Last week, we asked if the season was over after the loss to the Vikings, and that was even before we got the news that Robert Saleh was fired. This week, we sort of know that the season is not going the way we want it. Dare I say the season might potentially be over. But we come out of this game with a completely different question. At least I do. Is Aaron Rodgers done? Is Aaron Rodgers as an elite quarterback the way we remember him prior to the injury in the glory days of on the tail end of his Packers career? Is that Aaron Rodgers done? Mark, we saw a little bit of the old Rodgers magic on that Hail Mary play with Lazard right before the half. But at this point, those flashes are merely that, flashes, right? Like he has failed to deliver, as we said in the open, in 3 consecutive games. Late in the game with the ball in his hand, the outcome has become predictable now. Like we expect to lose rather than him infusing us with the hope that we're going to pull it out. Regardless of who the coach is it fair to ask that Aaron Rodgers is done?
I mean, it's really hard to say. I mean, Aaron Rodgers played a pretty good game today. 23 of 35, 294 yards, 2 touchdowns. You played that Ulbrich bite before, and while that was going on, I was refreshing Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. Aaron Rodgers was at the podium. Connor Hughes asked him about the interception, and he seemed to say that Mike Williams ran the wrong route on the play.
What specifically did you see on the throw? How would you throw up?
There's 2 verticals, Allen's down the seam, Mike's down the red line. So I'm looking at Allen. He puts his hand up, 3 guys go with him, so I'm throwing a no look to the red line. And when I just peek my eyes back there, he's running an inbreaker. So it's got to be down the red line.
So were you throwing that spot to come back to it?
No, I was throwing it to the red line, but when I got to about here, I realized he was running an inbreaker, so I had to kind of adjust it a little bit. But the play is 2 guys vertical, 1 guy down the seam, 1 guy on the red line.
If that's the case, and obviously Mike Williams misplayed the ball because he had to stop, try to come back to it, which caused him to slip, which caused the interception.
Right.
If it is true that he ran the wrong route, there is a chance Aaron Rodgers still leads them down for a game-winning drive. And then he's got 3 touchdowns and no interceptions.
Right.
As opposed to last week when he threw 3 interceptions, and this could be a completely different conversation. So I don't know if he's completely done. The counterpoint.
The counterpoint to that would be that Mike Williams only had 3 targets the entire game.
That's true
He was not completely involved in the offense. And as a quarterback, it is your job to get to know your personnel and know that you need to. He's done a fantastic job kind of rekindling that relationship with Garrett Wilson. He has gone above and beyond with the targets with him. Another 10 targets for him today, 8 receptions, 107 yards. but he has failed to the detriment of the team to continue to build any sort of chemistry with Mike Williams. Yes, we're getting these Lazard games, but like when you need him most, your 6'4" ex receiver has no receptions, and then you're going to him at the end of the game and expecting him to essentially adjust on the fly. It was a very poorly thrown ball. I mean, it was underthrown. You
Well, how
expect him
much of that is
Yep.
what route was he really
Whether
supposed to
right,
run?
yes, right, yes. No, that's a good point. But at the end of the day, we can only judge Aaron by what he is here to do. Let me play this short clip for you from the actual podium presser today.
Guys have had the ball late in the game with a chance to take the lead and didn't do it. I mean, how frustrating is it that you haven't been able to?
Yeah, it's frustrating. I'm here to win those games, but we got to be on our details. You know, it's little things every single time.
See that that's the thing that I wanna talk about. The details, right? The detail. In the game preview that I wrote, I talked a lot about um the control that Aaron Rodgers requires at the line of scrimmage, the control that he demands in terms of adjusting and changing plays and look, a lot of these quarterbacks, the elite Hall of Fame quarterbacks, essentially play these chess games with the defense. And how much of that improvisational kind of play style is to blame for the lack of cohesion and the lack of the receivers knowing where they're supposed to be. Is it fair to say that because he's improvising so much on the fly and expecting his receivers to kind of essentially know what they're supposed to be doing? Is it too much to ask for a call to be called in the huddle, breaking the huddle with everyone knowing exactly what they're supposed to be doing, and then running that play? Is that too much to ask, or are you limiting Rodgers and this offense? At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter because we're failing either fucking way, right? But like, why is it that we're so deep into the season and this happens every single week, that players either run the wrong route or don't know where they're supposed to be or are just in a completely different, and it takes different. I mean, it was Garrett last week. You know what I'm saying? Like Tyler Conklin today was a non-factor, 3 targets. It's just players disappear from the scheme. How much is that, do you think, is on Rodgers' improvisational style versus just the lack of efficiency or lack of doing their job from the receiving core?
I mean, I think a lot of it is on Aaron's improvisational style. You
Yeah.
could go into practice all week and talk about these things,
Yeah.
but once the game is happening and the play is actually unfolding, you can't predict what's going to happen if the play breaks down, where you're supposed to be. If Aaron sees something, you're supposed to know how to switch your route at the last minute or
Yeah.
know exactly where he wants you to be. It's kind of difficult to go through in practice because it's not going to play out exactly like a game situation.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it's right.
So, I mean, unless Aaron has specifics, it's really hard to predict those things, and I think a lot of it should fall on him.
I mean, I sort of agree with you. I just, at the end of the day, we've talked about it. The reason why Robert Saleh lost his job is because this is a results oriented business, regardless of his focal point being the defense or not. And they were the quote unquote strong part of this team. At the end of the day, you are judged by the wins and the losses. You are judged by what you can and cannot do. And at this stage of the season, Aaron Rodgers has proven time and time again that he is unable, with the game on the line, to drive his team to victory. And it's weird because it's not that you're running out of time. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not a time management thing. It's not that like we're hustling to the line and we just can't get a play off. It's the way we are losing. With the Broncos, we lost with so much time still on the clock. We could have run the play. Like, it's just with the Vikings, it's that back-breaking interception, like on a terribly thrown ball to Mike Williams, who wasn't very much involved in the passing game. And this week, it was
Who
just like,
apparently ran the wrong route then as well.
I mean, but you're like,
I mean, you're going under the assumption that you should believe what they're saying about it, but
true. And I mean, we know that Aaron Rodgers has been known to stretch the truth a little bit. Let's talk. We know you and I worked together at a news organization where we covered his vaccination. Like, I'm immunized. What did he call himself? He said he was not vaccinated. He was immunized or something. I don't like Aaron's been known to stretch the truth. There is a whole issue about his helmet. Remember, his helmet was ruled like by the NFL to be not meet safety standards, and he was like, "Well, no, I'm going to change it. I'm going to get a different brand that a company that I'm investing in," and ultimately he continues to wear the same helmet. And then he tells everyone, "Oh no, they changed the padding on the inside, so now it meets regulation standards." I don't believe him. It doesn't matter. Like, time and time again, he has proven to stretch the truth. So at this point, when he says, "Oh, the receiver ran the wrong route," I don't believe you. I don't believe you unless Mike Williams comes out tomorrow and says, "Yes, my bad. I ran the wrong route." But it's just like, it's gotten to the point where I do not believe Aaron Rodgers when he says what he says. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, I've lost all hope that he can lead this team to anything but a potential 7-8 win season, if that. And even that's like stretching it. I have no hope that if we, like, he was supposed to be the final piece. You know what I'm saying? Like, he was supposed to be the piece that we needed to compete and to take us to the next level. But now it's like, oh no, now we need Devontae Adams. He needs his receiver. You know what I'm saying? Like, like, no, like, that's not,
yeah.
you were supposed to be the final piece. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Like, oh, it's fucking frustrating,
Yeah.
dude.
The only pushback I'll give on that
Mhm.
is if he is saying these things and they aren't true, that is the absolute quickest way to lose this receiving set of core and lose the locker room.
Yeah.
And I think he's been around the league long enough to know that, and I don't think that's something that he is considering even doing.
I mean, push the big
Especially his big thing was also accountability. So
right.
how can you go and say, "Oh,
Yeah.
we need accountability," and then he's gonna, shift the blame to other people if it's really
I
his
mean,
fault?
let's call a spade though. But the tail end of his Packers career, he would go on podcasts, he would go on and then just completely talk about all emotions, and how he didn't like all the emotions. Like, he's known to say things, out of frustration in the moment. He is not one to measure his voice. Like, for example, the Calvin Ridley this week. Calvin Ridley had a terrible drop late in the game, and it's a very perfect example of what happened with Mike Williams today. He had a terrible, terrible drop at the end of the game that could have won the game for the Titans, and he is incredibly frustrated. He goes, "Yes, I have to be better, but you also have to involve me earlier in the game." He says, I can't be not targeted the entire first half, and then you expect me to have any sort of flow or chemistry. And that's Calvin Ridley with a young quarterback saying this. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's important for these QB1s to get involved in the scheme when you expecting them to when you're supposed to count on them. But again, I'm rambling because of my just complete and utter disgust in this team. I am turning on Aaron Rodgers. He's losing me. Forget about the fucking locker room. He's losing me.
And once you lose Ras, you lose the nation. That's what they used to say
Man.
about like Walter Cronkite, right? Once you
Yeah.
lose Cronkite, you've lost the nation. Something like that.
Something like that.
For all you older Jet fans out there.
Oh man. Um, Look, we had some hope at the beginning. The offense looked like it found its footing. and we were moving the ball, and I was like, oh man, we've turned a corner. But ultimately, the game was lost not just because of Aaron Rodgers. It was lost because of the defensive effort. And let's talk about what went wrong with the defense today. Look, everything is Aaron Rodgers' fault, and no, just kidding, just kidding. As I said in our emergency podcast when Robert Saleh was fired, that I was concerned that Jeff Ulbrich would not have adequate time to prepare, giving his new responsibilities, given that the change was done so late in the week, Tuesday. How do you think Jeff Ulbrich did with his game plan on the defensive side of the ball?
I mean, coming into the game, they were already down Michael Carter.
Yep.
During the game, they lost Chuck Clark to an ankle injury. They lost DJ Reed to a groin injury. At one point, they lost Will McDonald for a little bit. So this defense kind of was already playing down a lot. I mean, the first drive, the Bills marched down the field, score a touchdown.
Yep.
You know,
Josh, they did one pass play, one
pass play.
Yeah.
For the second time this season, a backup running back completely gashes the Jets. Ray Davis had 20 carries for 97 yards. Jeez. He led all Buffalo Bills in receiving yards with 55 on 3 catches. He was essentially, him and Josh Allen were their entire offense. So once again, the Jets get destroyed by a backup running back. They can't stop the run. Just tons and tons of penalties. I know a lot of people were complaining. Some of the pass interference calls were a little suspect. But this defense already down a lot of people, still can't seem to stop the run. They got Lucky Fotu back. He was supposed to be a guy that was supposed to help this run defense. He comes back. They still can't do anything. This defense did not play well. Javon Kinlaw, 3 penalties on one drive that essentially ended up costing them the game. Michael Clemens, everyone knew Josh Allen was running the ball on that final play. Clemens looks like he's going to set the edge, comes inside a little bit, lets Josh Allen get to the outside. You can't really expect him to chase Josh Allen in the open field, but he's got to do a better job of setting the edge there. There's just so many plays you can point to that could have been avoided.
I mean, at this point, it's like it's the same old song week in and week out. Missed tackles, pre-snap penalty. It's the same shit every fucking week, man. Like Ray fucking Davis. Like Rich was like, who the fuck is Ray Davis? You're like 4th rounder. I'm like, dude, it doesn't fucking matter who is lining up back. I was expecting Frank Gore Jr. to fucking do this to us. Like, it did not matter. The Jets cannot be counted on to do what they're supposed to be doing. It doesn't matter who's the quarterback. It doesn't matter what Jeff Ulbrich is saying. It doesn't matter whether he's fucking comatose on the sideline or not. At this point, like, we are not a good football team. We are not a good offensive football team. We're not a good defensive football team. We are self-imploding. And the worst part is that we're doing it on Monday Night Football with the entire league watching.
Again, just like week 1 against the 49ers.
Just like week 1.
Came in, high expectations. They got completely exposed.
I mean, dude, it's brutal. It's like week in and week out. It's the same shit. Like, any spark that we could have gotten from Ulbrich taking on the defense and like fuck, I'm tired of hearing about accountability. You know when I'm gonna be happy? If Kinlaw is cut from the team or benched. I didn't see Solomon Thomas. I gotta look at the play count. Our pass rush was non-existent, right? Like, it just did not exist at all. Like, it's frustrating when you know that you're going up against Josh Allen. And I know that he is a mobile running quarterback, but just to not being able to bring him down when it seemed like he was caught for a sack time and time again. Like, it's just the expectations based on what we have on paper, right? According to Woody Johnson, this is the best team we've had in decades, right? And the reason why he fired Robert Saleh is because he needed a change, because he needed us to get back on track to where we were supposed to be. We're not supposed to be. This is who we are. Spencer Brown did not allow a single pressure at all in any of the first 3 games this season. But like supposedly he was struggling coming into this game. Nope. Will McDonald, non-existent. Like our pass rush, non-existent. Like it's foolish for us to think that we're going to turn this around. Man, I'm fucking so demoralized. I am so fucking beat and lost and like just everything. Fucking our kicking game. Like every aspect of this football team is crumbling before our very eyes. Every aspect of this fucking team is ass and will revert back to these tendencies of being ass until we maybe get rid of Woody Johnson, sell the team, move to Secaucus, change our team colors, maybe change our name. I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't fucking know. At this point, like I don't even care what Jeff Ulbrich's scheme was coming into the game. It did not fucking matter. It did not matter. Like we knew that it was windy. We knew that they weren't going to run past the ball heavily at the beginning. We knew what this team can do, and they punched us in the mouth. They came in, ran it 8 straight times. They didn't have a third down in the entire first drive. They just ran the ball, ran the ball, ran the ball. They were like pushing us around. Like it's just like what he is supposed to represent, what Ulbrich is supposed to represent, this tough, hard-nosed, kind of like aggressive tendency. It doesn't fucking matter, dude. Like you could bring Bill Belichick and we would look like ass. You can bring Bill Coward, you can raise Chuck Noll from the dead, and we would still be a shitty fucking defense because that is the DNA of this fucking team.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I think the big thing was right before that insane Hail Mary where the Bills are up 13-10. The Jets need to get a stop. They can't recover the fumble from Josh Allen. Quincy can't jump on it. So the Bills get the ball back. It's 3rd and 11. They look like they're going to sack Josh Allen. He eludes 2 defenders, throws that touchdown to Dawson Knox. Like they couldn't tackle. They couldn't get any sort of pass rush when it counted. I mean, this defense was just an embarrassment today.
That's the perfect word to. But here's the problem though. Like I don't even think they're fucking embarrassed, dude. Like I don't even think they give a shit. Like every week is the same shit. Oh, we just got to go out and do this stuff and gotta turn the corner, gotta look at the tape. Like I'm sick of this shit.
You can look at the tape all you want, but if you don't fix these things, nothing ever changes.
We keep shooting ourselves in the foot. Gary Wilson. We keep shooting ourselves in the foot, and it's something we've been doing, something we've been emphasizing all throughout the practice week, and we still go out there and do these things that keep us out of the end zone. I mean, like that's your star receiver saying these things. That's not fucking like the blame game is on. Like it's just tough, man. It's just tough and demoralizing when your star receiver is using words like demoralizing and like it's just running pretty much the same stuff, just executed better. That's what Brees Hall says. Like, dude, it's just fucking shitty. We can't count on our offense. We can't count on our Hall of Fame quarterback. We can't count on our defense. And we don't know if reinforcements are coming. Like, we don't know if we're getting, Devontae Adams. We don't know if we're getting Hassan Reddick. We don't know if we're firing Ulbrich and getting in Bill Belichick. We don't know if, Woody Johnson is just going to sell the team. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen.
I think we could safely say 2 of those things are definitely not happening. Woody Johnson is not selling the team, and we are not getting Bill Belichick. Ambassador Johnson.
Sorry,
Ambassador Johnson.
Like, why would anyone want to come here? Like, why would anyone like want to come here seeing this, right? The trope of same old Jets. Like, if you are, Hassan Reddick had the right idea. Rich McLeod had the right idea. Let's just get as far away from this as possible, and maybe our mental health will be better for it. Like it's just we are the same old Jets, and as much as it pains me to say that, that is the truth. Like, oh fuck, dude, this is fucking shitty.
I also think it's crazy how we're 41 minutes into the podcast.
Uh,
We haven't mentioned Greg Zuerlein.
Oh, Greg, the fucking leg. I mean, let's talk about him now. I mean, what the fuck is going on with him? Like, statistically, like if you try 100 times to hit the upright, like what are the chances that you're gonna hit it twice back to back
Yeah.
in opposite ends of the fucking stadium? Like, statistically improbable, right? But
It's
because
so funny because we went from last season saying Greg Zuerlein was the MVP of the team to this season, Greg Zuerlein missed field goal after missed field goal. They had Siebert in training camp. They showcased him. He was amazing. He's doing great.
Yep.
And everyone wants to talk about Joe Douglas and whether or not he's a good GM. There was probably zero chance they were going to cut Greg Zuerlein and keep Siebert, but those are the kind of GM decisions
Right.
that make or break whether or not you should stay employed.
I mean,
And for some reason, the Jets constantly seem to make the wrong decision.
like we just cannot hit on anything, right? He's 1 for 3 and 40 to 49 yards. He's 0 for 1 for 50. I mean, right now, right?
And
this
those
season,
used to be automatic for him.
and those are right. There's automatic, and I was gonna say that this season, I feel like everyone's hitting from 55, 56. Like this is probably the era of the strong-legged kickers. The success rate of kickers is like through the roof and astronomical, and everyone's talking about like these how strong the kickers are, and except the
Yeah.
ones
I
the Jets
mean, Kai Fairbairn hit a 57-yard field goal
like,
to win that game for the Texans last week.
I mean, yeah, 59 yards
59.
or 56 or 59. But it's still like it's just insane, dude. Like when one thing goes wrong, it just infects everything else, and everything else slowly starts going to shit. And that's the truth. Like and that's the perfect segue. Going to shit is the perfect segue into our third quarter, which is where do we go from here? I mean, this is like quickly going off the rails. This has become just like a bitch fest therapy session, but a much needed one because it's just this team that we root for. It doesn't matter what changes that we do, new coach, new offensive play caller, we still don't have a pass rush. We're still missing tackles. Our QB is still getting his ass kicked every week. He's not getting any fucking younger. I mean, Mark, where do we go from here? Like, what's give me
We
some
don't go
hope.
in.
Where do we go from here?
We don't go anywhere good. I know in the next quarter we're going to talk about the look ahead to next week against the Steelers. Spoiler alert: I don't think they're going to win that game. The Steelers have a lot of the things that you just struggle with: a great defense, a mobile quarterback, a good rushing attack. The week after that, they play the Patriots. Who knows? Drake May could be good. He had a couple of great plays this week. So he didn't look absolutely terrible. The Jets historically do a good job of taking on rookie quarterbacks and making them look like rookies. Then you got the Halloween game against the Texans, the Cardinals. I mean, this is a rough schedule.
Yeah.
Cardinals mobile quarterback, Colts mobile quarterback, Seahawks
Rushing attacks. Yeah, rushing attacks. It doesn't get any easier, man.
It does not get any easier the next few weeks. I don't know where they go from here. Maybe there's a possibility that the Devontae Adams trade happens, and maybe he catches those balls that Mike Williams is dropping or that Alan Lazard has dropped. Maybe, Drew Rosenhaus is this magic deal maker, and he can get Hassan Reddick in here. But barring like a miracle, I don't see where they go from here. That's actually a good spot right now. They're 2 games now back from the Bills. They've lost this one. The best they can do is split with them.
Yeah.
And then it comes down to all the convoluted tiebreakers and stuff like that. But right now, you're 2 games behind them.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the things that gave me hope. See, this week it was like this emotional roller coaster. When we recorded the emergency podcast, I went on record as saying like I did not like the firing of Robert Saleh, independently of in my current job. I witnessed firsthand what um the firing of a coach and the firing of a general manager does to a person. Like I've worked in media for a very, very long time. I've worked in production for a very long time, along with you. We've worked in news. We've worked in baseball. Um, this current job that I have was the very, very first time that I got to see in meetings and speak to and have relationships with people who have lost their jobs due to the product on the field. And I see how mentally taxing it is and how it impacts family and it impacts like every moment of your life, knowing that you have no control whether you keep your job or not. um the A person that I work very, very closely got fired, got sick, went to the hospital, was in the hospital for weeks on end, um and ultimately the decision was made to fire him because of the results on the field, and it just felt inhumane and cruel. But ultimately, like, this is the jobs that they go into, and they know that these are the possibilities, that regardless of how good you are at your job, um other your job security is with other people, right? Like, ultimately, regardless of how good you are, Mark, at your job security belongs to someone else, and it belongs to a collective group of people that you've brought together to try to win a football game. And I went on record as saying that I did not think that this team, regardless of whether we kept Robert Sala or not, that the issues with this team had nothing to do with who the head coach was, had everything to do with who the leadership is on this team, who the leaders are, right? And you might have a Quinnen Williams, for example, being the highly paid kind of Pro Bowler leader of your team who disappears and who can't make a sack when you need him to, right? You have like these super loud and boisterous cornerback that everyone wants to have on their team, and he who is on the cover of magazines and is tweeting and is supposedly one of the best in football. He can't make an interception to seal a game. You know what I'm saying? It's just
People get on his tackling.
people get on his tackling, or the players who are supposed to lead and carry and take you to the next level just do not exist on our roster at this moment. It's just not. Garrett Wilson, phenomenal offensive talent, had tremendous a ton of fucking yards after catch today. Finally seems to be getting on the same page with quarterback. He is not one of the best receivers in football, and he is not able to make a catch to win you a football game. And that is just the truth. Like, that is the truth. The best players that we have on our team are not playmakers, are not players who can overcome deficiencies, overcome shitty calls at the end of a game, and that extends to Aaron Rodgers. Like, that is, to a man,
Yeah.
we lack those playmakers that we can all see and identify and be like, oh, Mark, he's got it. Oh, he's got that it factor that can win you a game through sheer will. You know, the the Jamar Chases of the world. You know what I'm saying? And there's few of them. And like, look, I'm not complaining. I'm not bitching because there's only a handful of them in the NFL, right? The TJ Watts, who you can count on to fucking seal a game and fucking force a fumble when you need him to. You know what I'm saying? Players like of that character, the Matt Staffords, who you can say he's gonna fucking break his arm and still get up and try to throw a touchdown pass to win you a game. And prior to coming to this team, Aaron Rodgers was seen as that. But when you like inspect it and you analyze it, I was like, oh man, no, you've always been kind of like this wild card player who thinks he's actually smarter than he really is. Um, just I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know where do we go from here. I don't know if like we honestly have anything short of just fucking tearing the whole shit down and starting over. Like Jesus Christ. We're fucking 6 weeks into the season.
I mean, other than the blind optimism of the more Jeff Ulbrich does this, maybe
Yeah.
the better he'll
Thank you.
get.
Talk me off the ledge. Come on. Give it to me.
I don't know that I can because I'm inching closer to that ledge with you.
Oh man. It's you know what the worst part is, Mark? Is that our quarterback is going to be 41 years old. We don't have a backup that we can trust to, you know what I'm saying? At least the
You have no
fucking
faith in Jordan Travis,
Oh,
who looks like
Adrian Martinez.
Jordan Travis, who looks like he was the best quarterback in college football last year,
Like
based on this season. The
way FSU is
the
playing
way
right now.
FSU is playing this season.
I it's just I want to have a glimmer of hope, and there's nothing that I can see or look to that gives me that glimmer of hope. I don't. I just don't see it. Garrett Wilson is not that guy. Garrett Wilson is not a superstar. I mean, let's just call a spade a spade. Quentin Williams, not a superstar. Aaron Rodgers used to be one. He no longer is. That's just the truth of the matter. That's just, and we
Even
have
Brees
nobody.
Hall, everyone was like Brees Hall, second best running back in the NFL.
Nope.
You know, he had a great game this week, but you know, he had a couple of duds. You know, who knows what he is right now?
Right. Even when he has a great game, he is unable to make that last move to get into the end zone to win you a game. That's what I'm saying. That is to a man. Every player on this roster is unable to carry you to a victory. Unable. And it's just like they are not difference makers. They are not playmakers. They are not superstars. There are no superstars on the Jets. And that is the difference between winning and losing in the National Football League. The teams that have a superstar and a difference maker and a playmaker are the ones who win and win consistently. And we just don't have one on this roster. Maybe we can trade for one. Who knows? And even that, maybe he'll revert back to being shit because he's wearing green and white.
Yep. Who knows how much
You did not talk me
curse
off the
of the
ledge.
Jets.
You
I
did
told
not talk
you.
me off the ledge.
I'm inching right there with you. I don't know that I can.
It's just, I mean,
Maybe
it's
if
tough.
Rich, I would say maybe if Rich was here, he's probably the most negative out of the three of us. So he'd probably be the one pushing you off.
I mean, it's tough. It's a tough evening. It's a tough game. It's miserable, and it's only going to get worse. Next week we're going to Pittsburgh. Even
in
Pittsburgh,
another primetime game.
In another primetime game, even Pittsburgh, for example. You look around the league, right? And you try to like, oh fuck, let me see who's worse than we are. I guess you can say the Browns are in shittier position than we are. But at the end of the day, they have Myles Garrett. They could tear down the offense. They could try to find a sucker to take Deshaun Watson. And they have assets to try and rebuild on the fly. They're a shitty organization, probably just as equally as bad as we are. But at least they have at least Deshaun Watson, who's not 40. He has a shitty contract, and he's the whole sexual deviant predator type shit, which is horrible. Right? But like look around the league. Who's got a worse situation than we do? The Dolphins, probably. They still got Tyreek. I mean,
They've got Tyreek, they've got Waddle, they've got Achan, who looks like when he's healthy, a really good running back. They just don't have the stability at quarterback.
And more importantly, they have Mike McDaniels. What do we have? Jeff Ulbrich. Like that's another thing. That's the other thing that I mentioned in the emergency podcast, and we'll segue into our fourth quarter now because I know I'm fucking rambling and it's getting late. And that's the other thing that I mentioned about the decision to fire Robert Saleh. They have already identified Jeff Ulbrich as a future head coach, right? He was already identified as that. He was a rising star. Everybody talked about how great he was, X's and O's, how much a person, a motivator. Now you bring him in the middle of the season. You thrust this job upon him, basically setting him up to fail, setting him up to fail. And what happens when he does? The Jets are going to look for another head coach. They're not going to fucking keep Ulbrich and basically tarnish a potential future head coach, a potentially successful head coach, who then will take this opportunity and these learning lessons to take it to his next job, the same way Robert Saleh. Robert Saleh is going to get a job the moment he wants one as a defensive coordinator and go right back into coaching. You know who's not going to get another job after this? Nathaniel Hackett. You know who's probably not going to get a job after this? Aaron Rodgers. Joe Douglas is probably going to be fired. You can't give a man, three different quarterbacks and three different head coaches and say, "Oh man, we'll get him next time, Joe. Did a good job." You know what I'm saying? Like this, or
Yeah.
this, where do we go from here? Is not a good place. And you think this evening, it's going to get a lot darker, a lot quicker because this season is going off the fucking rails. And yeah, I mean, let's just hope the Yankees go deep into the World Series.
I'm still rooting for that Liberty championship.
Hey, maybe that'll make
Hey,
me
Knicks
smile.
are undefeated in the preseason.
Hey, let's keep this fucking jolly good show rolling, huh? Let's talk a little bit about the Steeler matchup. Oh man, this fucking show is going off the fucking rails and quick. It
Who
doesn't.
knew that Rich was the stability on the show?
He was the stability. He is the Robert Saleh of this podcast.
He is the glue that holds us together,
He was the glue that held us together, and without him,
but does not hold any of us accountable.
doesn't hold us accountable. And because of him, we are able to go off on tangents and take this show in different
Because we lack discipline.
We lack discipline.
Yeah, we are the Jets.
A ton of
We are an
pre-snap penalties.
extension of that team. We are the
We have taken
undisciplined.
We have taken the identity of the team we root for.
Yep,
We are
exactly.
we are undisciplined, lack structure, lack stability, and lack a future. Fuck, that's dark. But anyway, let's talk about the matchup against the Pittsburgh. You tease a little bit about how it's difficult and how the team that they have actually are the teams that pose the most challenges for the Jets. What do you expect out of that matchup?
Yeah, I mean, I did tease it a little bit before. This Pittsburgh team does everything that the Jets struggle against. They have a mobile quarterback. Justin Fields has 231 rushing yards on the season. They have a big bruising back in Najee Harris. Just can't stop the run right now. They have a great defense. This matchup does not look good for the Jets at all. I don't have any expectations whatsoever that they are going to win this game. I mean, they have a great tight end. The Jets historically have struggled to cover tight ends. Pat Freiermuth is a very good tight end.
Mhm.
I everything that this Steelers and Mike Tomlin is the biggest X factor. He will probably outcoach Jeff Ulbrich to no end. This Steelers team is basically the antithesis of everything that the Jets are, and they do everything well that the Jets struggle against.
So let me get this right. They have a better coach. They have a better running game. They have a better defense. They have two options at quarterback because if Justin Fields is unable to cut the mustard, they have Russell Wilson waiting in the wings. They are the number one overall rushing efficiency, the number one defense against the rush. Their pressure rate is middle of the pack, but TJ Watt is going to have a lot of fun with.
Yeah, TJ Watt's amazing. Cam Hayward.
Like they're gonna have fun with our offensive line unless we can
Yep.
kind of get it together. It sucks. They're a +7 turnover differential. It's just they're 4-2. We're 2-4. I mean, like it just comes down to coaching, man. Comes down to coaching and having a handful of playmakers on your team. And as we were discussing earlier, they have them. They have those playmakers that can motivate and carry you and be the difference in a game. I mentioned this before, but one of a coach that I used to coach with said that there's 5 plays that make a difference in a game, and you never know when those 5 plays are going to pop up, and the best players know to perform and know how to identify those plays and carry you to victory. And we don't have any of those players on our team. Like even fucking Josh Allen like needed to make 1 play to win the game, and he did it. Like regardless of whether it was Clemens or whoever was there, like first of all, like how do you not know when they go overload right that he was gonna definitely roll it out on the opposite end?
Everyone knew what they were doing.
Everyone knew.
Everyone knew the play call.
I was watching the game.
You know what? Honestly, even Michael Clemens knew the play call because he set up like he was playing it perfectly.
And unable to stop him. 1-on-1, just unable. So in short, the Jets are going to win, blow out the Steelers, and and bring us right back into this merry-go-round of misery. Yeah, I mean, this is a great episode thus far. Mark, with your permission, I would like to end it there because it has been a terrible evening. It has been a terrible evening.
Do,
it has been a miserable existence as a Jets fan. I mean, honestly, it's just miserable, depressing. And I blame us both because we both have children and we both allowed our children, at least your daughter's young, and she can still kind of root for another team. Both of my sons are Jets fans, and I've infected them with this disease that will follow them for the rest of their life.
Yes. Luckily, my daughter is young enough that she went to sleep shortly after the game started and did not have to witness any of that. She will not have to witness any of what is going to happen next week because that is also a Sunday night game. So, she'll wake up in the morning and she'll say, "Daddy, did the Jets win?" And I'll have to say, "No, sweetie, we didn't win.
Stop rooting for the Jets."
Yeah, but then I'll go, "But the Yankees won," and she'll say, "Go Yankees."
There you go. So, and if anything, that's our silver lining, right? Like we root for other teams. So we here at the Just the podcast are thankful to all the listeners who tune in every week. I truly hope you root for other winning teams to balance out the misery. The Mets, the Yankees, shit, even the fucking Liberty are kicking ass. Regardless,
essentially every other team in New York is great with the exception of the Giants. We don't have a football team, but all other sports, we're doing pretty well.
Fucking soccer, both the Red Bulls and the NYCFC are going to the playoffs. Like everything except football. Everything except football. I'm going to go back to rooting for high school football teams. I'm going to go check out a Bergen Catholic game this weekend. Maybe I'll go see a Cardinal Hayes. I don't know what's the local powerhouse in Long Island, but maybe I'll go check out one of those games.
I don't either.
Regardless, look, we are thankful that all these other Jet fans want to be miserable with us and tune in every week because, we've said it before. We'll say it again. You don't choose who you fall in love with. And unfortunately, we made the mistake many, many, many years ago to fall in love with the New York Jets. With that, from Mark and myself, thank you for listening. We'll see you next week.
Here we go. Thank you for listening to Just Jets, the podcast. Be sure to rate and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and check out the Just Jets newsletter at justjets.net.